Hello and welcome. So today I want to make another, um, just make another attempt. I've actually made numerous attempts at uh, talking about this particular topic, kind of head on. I've mentioned it in other podcasts that are on my channel. Um, Anyways, just this. I guess I've mentioned it in a roundabout way by talking about it as a cocoon of sorts, or like a kind of a transition that I've been in. And it's funny because actually this morning, although I've been talking about it for a long time, and it's been a process that I've been, um, it's been a that I've been like really living, I guess to say it that way, for a long time. This morning, I actually had to, um, well, and I've been using certain terms, and this morning I actually had to look up to look up kind of Google to clarify the distinctions between these two terms that I was kind of going back and forth with whether I should use, basically being deconstruction and deconversion, because I was aware of I became aware of a distinction of those terminologies, and a distinction between the two, by listening to the different outlets that I've been privy to lately, and but I wasn't sure, actually which one to use in my case. So I thought that was actually kind of funny, just how that this it really is a situation of like the experience is preceding my kind of looking into it. You know what I mean? And I understand those terminologies to be pretty general, still yet, even with the distinctions and everything. But I'll I do intend to have it kind of in my phone as a note to actually like quote some sources or whatever later on. But I kind of want to get into what we're talking about. So yeah. So this morning I was thinking about, just thinking about that. It's Sunday morning, and I did not go to church, and so I am a member actually of a Baptist church, a local Baptist church, Southern Baptist church, and I it's been, I guess I don't know how long now, maybe a month, or around 2 months or something like that, that that I haven't been particularly going to Sunday school, because it's been quite a while that I've been going to Sunday school, and not going to the larger service, the main service. It's been a longer season of time that's been my kind of practice, and purposeful practice also. Um, and so just even going to the small group, and so it's been about 2 months since I've been absent from the small group. And so you know one thing I can say, well, I guess right now, amongst many things, is that when I do resonate very much with how, and it's content creators who talk about their deconstruction or deconversion. They talk about how, just the lingering psychological impact of their they call it different things, Christian programming, or their currently held worldview, or the terminology kind of ranges, but they yeah, they talk about how just in many different ways, the just kind of the mental part. Um, I'll put a little parentheses if that's what it is, simply the mental part in parentheses. The mental part kind of goes on and gives and just kind of has kind of a lingering effect that man, I tell you what, I hear many of these people. One one thing I have noticed is the recommendation to for the seeking of therapy and the recommendation of seeking professional help and and I'm not yeah I of course am instinctually kind of lean away from that kind of method, but um, you know it's I'm not I'm not bashing about it. You know what I mean? I'm not bashing on it at this point. So, anyways, yeah, waking up this morning, realizing that it's Sunday, perceiving my absence, and yeah, feeling as though it is important to really begin to articulate, which I haven't, I've been trying to, and I haven't really been doing well, but continuing to press on is articulate this my reasoning, articulate my some as best I can. Like I said, this has been a something that's been a process from the best I could understand, from what I can when I from when I can remember my first like I mentioned actually yesterday, the first kind of question askings and the first kind of realizing the quote unquote okayness for that to be done. That was something that was revelatory, and it was the beginning of all kinds of things. When I say all kinds of things, with regard to like going into certain area, like just going into different areas of inquiry, as opposed to the the much more kind of narrower view of kind of truth getting and where truth was and stuff like that, where that I had before, that I was that I had when I was younger and things like that. So yeah, there was that first that first period. As far as I can remember, like I said, that was about a little over a decade ago, and so that's why I kind of put that time on it. But sure, I'm because I think I also mentioned yesterday how in a lot of ways I can even remember though from younger. It's a crazy thing about memory though, but as best as I think I can remember, from younger, having those kind of inarticulable dissidences, real simple dissidences where it's just even at a young age you can see certain things and maybe and then over against what they're what's being said, maybe what's being preached or what you're seeing or what you're hearing when people read the Bible and stuff like that, and then like observing perhaps conversation or behavior of certain people and everything, and children are able to see are able to perceive disconnections, even though they're inarticulable, and even I'll say perhaps even having having like in a child mind maybe a kind of like a picture, because that's another thing I'll go. Well, I spoke a little bit about that yesterday, but just a picture of perhaps what the reality of the thing that they heard in the Bible might be like, and and so they're kind of and so yeah, they actually have kind of like a little simple childhood, maybe kind of a icon of sorts in their mind. It's something that there's different. Yeah, there's definitely different warnings about the creating of imaginary constructs of like God and stuff like that, in that are spoken from the pulpit. But it seems to be though that is rooted in a very primitive and a very anyways, just the image making, of unseen kind of the image making of inarticulable things. So anyways, that's another side point. So I do remember having, I just vaguely and to different, varying degrees. Like I really, about the earlier things, I really couldn't give you many details. Oh, I did think about one actually earlier. One of the young. So the first time that because I spoke yesterday a little bit about reading, about how the kind of the change with regard to reading that has taken place in myself, and over the years, just how not really caring about it in my younger days, and kind of feeling, seeing it as anyways, not interesting or fun necessarily, and then as I got older, especially in these later years, it has changed. I can remember actually, like, my first time, I guess, doing a little bit of research on, what was, as I was experiencing it. I was getting in trouble all the time, and in my I don't remember how I discovered it in there, but my dad had a bookshelf in his office, and with a bunch, of course, a bunch of books on it, and the bigger adult books, heavy ones on the top, and they went down to the smaller ones, and to where on our level, and it might have even been on another bookshelf, but on a smaller bookshelf. But there were, of course, some kids books and things like that. But or if that's even where I got it, I might have even gotten it from somewhere, somewhere else, not in his office. But the title of this little book, I was gonna look it up. I forgot to do that. I don't want to lose my place of what I have in my phone here to talk about. But it's this little book that's called "Why Do I Do Things Wrong?" And I do remember having an interest in that book as yeah, that was what I was feeling, and so it was like I think like my first little kind of research work of trying to do diagnostic on myself. But the book was Christian in nature. So and I forget, of course, I without even really remembering exactly what it had, or quote any of the lines from it, 'cause I don't remember, to be honest. I do understand that it basically outlined the like it outlined the traditional view of our origin and fallenness according to to the denomination that my parents were. So just I was talking about our how we would talk about us being fallen in Adam, and that our nature as humans our hearts our nature is inclined to evil, and that our hearts and our passions are inclined to that which is not pleasing to God, and that God has made a way for us to have our hearts turned to have our desires and our passions be not passions, but our desires and our we want to please God and stuff. In short, and yes, passions also. But of course, it wasn't talking necessarily about. It didn't say passions. I don't think in the book. But and I'm sure articulated things about things about hell, but basically it was roughly along those lines. I do want to look it up, and maybe someone else might remember that book, but the point of bringing that up was just how just kind of early on, the little impulses from conviction, from what are and I forget how old I was. Also, I unfortunately, I would that's something to kind of something I would it'd be I guess it might be a fun conversation to have with my folks. So. So yeah, so as I was thinking about, this, this process, like I said, started out talking about how hadn't gone to church and kind of anyways, just thoughts along that line. I I guess I wanted to talk about, I guess what I'll do then, I guess I wanted to talk about areas specifically um, where, how did I think about this before? I thought about this at the park, and I kind of was going over it in my head. I didn't have my phone or anything, and I tell you what, that's one thing that I've been pretty frustrated about, is that when when I have this habit of, like, man, I do all this rehearsing of things in my head. If I could, man, if I could bypass my mouth, right? And I don't know. It's hey, maybe it's coming with the AI advent, and not, well, we got more than that. We're pressing right on into advanced models, but neural implants and things like that. That would actually, quick side note, but that's one thing. When learning about that, the idea of, like, of neuro implants, and just the different potentials, medically and neurologically, that they can provide. I don't know. I do find myself seeing, whatever, promising. It's anyways, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Promise, but so anyways, but if there was some, since I don't have anything that can bypass my mouth, I have to. I struggle with this thing of trying to put out, right. I've mentioned that before also, trying to kind of put out what's in my mind. And it's funny because I did look. One of the things I looked up actually was, because I've being frustrated by this for as long as I have been. one of the verses that came into my attention though was in the New Testament in Luke 12:12. Um, and there's other ones, Matthew 10:19. Anyways, I just looked it up. I'm just kind of Googled it real quick. To but here's just some kind of like AI notes. It says the verse that speak about the Holy Spirit providing what to say are found in the Gospels of Matthew 10:19 and 20, and Luke 12:11 and 12. These passages assure believers that when facing trials and being brought before authorities, the Holy Spirit will give them the words to speak. And so, I that's just like I said, that's just it's a pretty general, but not bad. Are kind of that was so that was kind of along my understandings of this, of especially when well, yeah, so preachers, I've heard pastors and particularly preachers and evangelists um, talk about this, talk about their different applications of that principle. And I've heard of pastors who don't write notes. I believe C.S. Lewis, not C.S. Lewis, but C.H. Spurgeon. I believe he did not always use notes. I need to look that up and find out. But I do know of those in the past, and even more contemporary, more modern. I do believe that maybe has, I don't know, maybe gone away. I do. It does seem like the way that, in my opinion, the way that most orators, religious speakers sound, it's like they all kind of almost all they went to the same school. It seems like, and and so yeah, it seems like it just, I don't know, it just kind of seems like, yeah, it's all kind of more outline focused, and the idea of someone just orating for more than 30 minutes of meaningfulness. Anyways, whatever. So um, I did kind of get, oh yeah, so that deal. And just kind of like how I was having, just the kind of the problem I've been kind of frustrated with like yeah, since I've been attempting to do this YouTube stuff, um, and or this public speaking stuff in general, actually. I guess because this is in a way considered that. Um, and yeah, I do want to get better, and I will get better at maybe in my speaking. If I know there's a thing where the speaker can forget that they're speaking to people, and I know that kind of comes across in delivery and stuff. So please excuse me if that's how I sound at the moment. But yeah, man, if this is gonna get better. I have a lot of hope in anything in that, in that direction. So right, getting back on track here. So yeah, the Luke 12:12, and the Spirit um, helping us with what we should say. And so in my experience, as I seem to have this habitual tendency to rehearse in my head, like all kinds of stuff. I guess I've come to understand that the way my I don't know, the way my mind seems to work, brain or mind. That's the thing. I'm not exactly quite sure about which one I can kind of pin that on. Sure, it's both, but uh, it just, I'm always like rehearsing stuff that I would say to people, but I'm never saying it to people. I'm always just kind of saying it in my head, and so, I want to, I endeavor to move beyond that, and yeah, and not, and yeah, and do that less, and in doing of it, discover discover, like, you know what I mean, that I would like for it to be something that is that what actually, the things that I do have in my mind to say, that I don't say, that if I were to say them, that that the not even the outcome, but I just want them to be right. I just want them to be right, and I say right, like, not like right versus they're wrong, but I just want it to be. The Bible has these different allusions to, like, I don't know, just one's words, or being able to be, to just be what they need to be all the time, and that you're not using your tongue for vanity, and and evil. So that's important. That's one of those elements. One of those things I hope for myself, because I see that as increasingly important going forward, and kind of in the bigger picture. So yeah. So anyways, the yeah, this tendency that I talk about to just yeah, to do that, and my desire to be effectual with my speech, and so really, really leaning into the idea myself of the Spirit teaching someone what to say, if they're in the verse, actually, because none of these don't say that, because it's when they say, oh, here you go, here's one, specifically Matthew 10:19 and 20 reads, quote, "But when they hand you over, do not worry about how you are to speak or what you are to say, for what you are to say will be given you in that hour. For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you." That's it. That's the you know what I mean? And so I understand that my this tendency that I have to do that is perhaps quite literally the opposite of that. That's and so it was something that I was wanting to I've been desirous to overcome, given that given that deal, and just, and realizing that yeah, I could, this that tendency is this, yeah, I anyways, I think I can just I don't know what that is like. I don't believe to for that to be taking place. That's not something that has been a reality with me that I know of. And so that's, I want that's something that came to mind, or actually, as like, so when that's one of the differences that keeps what I'm experiencing from being a deconversion, as to when I say that, I don't know. It probably sounds like, if I were to be able to articulate, just a whole bunch of stuff, that people would conclude that, well, Ray, you sound like you've deconverted. totally, and I do not believe so. And that's something that I actually do, that I aim to present or to articulate later on. I have notes and stuff. I've been, anyways. So just kind of working on it, but that's one of the things, because just because there are these areas. And that does lead me into where kind of back on track, because there are these areas that I can say, you know, because I have not been experiencing this thing where and it's been, especially as of late, it's been something that I've been desirous of. Does not mean that it's not a thing, So basically, it seems to me that in order for me to be able to say that that there's literally nothing behind the symbols. I spoke a little bit about symbols yesterday. The symbols and imageries and stuff that kind of come forward in the scriptures. If there's no reality behind those things, then that's one thing. But if there is a reality behind it, I would. It seems to me that I would have to have the. So there are one of the consistent things that I've seen, that I've come across in listening to people who have deconstructed or deconverted in their testimonies and their content is, they don't really, for one, they don't really mention key areas. So I guess I have been listening out for certain key areas that I guess I have just had in my mind as kind of like value, kind of like standards to measure it from. So there's certain things, I guess, that I've been looking for, hearing these people talk about. And so one of the things that have been absent, that I've been looking for, is that they're talking about their experience of all right. So when Christ talks about the narrow way, and when it is filled in other parts of Scripture, the implications about one who is in the narrow way, just the lordship and the watch care and the protection and the very real kind of embracing of to add to that the indwelling of the Spirit of Christ, and the energizing of the divine Spirit energizing one's body, just all the things that are there's many more things, but that are talked about as components or things that are realities when in the way and stuff. It's like someone would have to, in my opinion, okay, oh yeah, because being entering into the way, being in the way, there are kind of prerequisite things. There are prerequisite things that are kind of common to, I guess, to everyone who will, because the picture is that it's this is something that multiplicities of beings are able to do, and it's supposed to be yeah. Anyways, the way the picture presents it, it's supposed to be a singular kind of a unifying way to where, yeah. So, and so, so yeah, the things, the prerequisite things, and then the things that are more individual, that the Spirit speaks to the heart of the individual. So so it's kind of like that. So one would have to say, I guess I would have to hear them speak about how that they about how they were in the way, that the reality of the things talked about of those who were in the way, the I mean that's the like that's the to me that is the core golden strand of where that unseen thing meets reality. Reality is when the individual is living the reality of this articulated thing that was spoken about, which the pictures has been obscured. And that's the thing. It was even spoken about by Christ in there, about how there's this narrow way and there's this broad way, and that there's many on it. That kind of imagery and stuff. And there's few who find it, and this is articulated the many things that keep people from finding it. And so yeah, I continue to not basically hear something that's kind of sounds like what I do hear is talking about how kind of involved in their religion, in their denomination that they were, or their you know what I mean, yeah, or the length of time, yeah, just basically something like that. It's all kind of centered around when they're talking about making when they're making the claim about how my reason for deconstruction is sound all the way and solid, because I was this far into it, into what I believed. I really, really believed it, and I was doing all these different things, and then now they're like atheist or agnostic, or they're or one of those other subsets of deconstruction and stuff. And so especially when I came to understand that those things are often talked about as like I was really doing it, those things aren't primarily the markers, signals of being in the way as it was articulated. Those have been made to be what it is now, over time. And so all these people who are like deconstructing and stuff, yeah, none of them are talking about how, and that's, I guess it is what I expect, that no one is talking about how they were like in the way, and they're testifying of like of their basically experience of the markers, because there are several markers that are given, and yeah, there are kind of, the crazy thing about them is that they're not things that a person can do themselves. They're not things that it's something that is done to them. It's something that occurs with pressure and weight, the things that are talked about, that are the prerequisite things, and that's one of the areas in my observation that is that's kind of been misunderstood. That the prerequisite things are things that a person says, okay, I see what is required, and I will do those things. There is a very thin element of that in it, because of the reality of like human volition, and the kind of the way that our our the way that just we work. We make decisions and we decide, and this and that. So there is a very thin element of that. But what you're deciding on is you're deciding on undergoing this a pressure that will change you into something that you don't know, basically. You know, not this thing where it's taken in hand to develop yourself into this thing that fits the prerequisite for the entering of the way. That's something that is very largely misunderstood. And because I admit that it's a hard argument. It's difficult to articulate in ways that are practical. Basically, how to do that. Someone says, okay, yeah, I want to be in the way. The way sounds, for whatever reason, the way sounds like something that I want to be in. And so, how do I do it? It's just for anyways. I don't intend, not in this talk. I'm not a teacher. I would have to, I have some in mind, but there's paraphrases of verses and things like that, of examples of the articulated things. Like one, like okay, so when Jesus when he talked about so okay, the Sermon on the Mount, or the Beatitudes, where he talks about blessed are this and that, the poor in spirit, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness. The different imageries that are used, the parables of of like the heart, of the parable of the sower. Different, there's all these, man. There's just several of them, and that are articulated as things that are the manner of those who are, as quoted, see the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God that he was saying, that Jesus was telling the people in that day in the scriptures, was in their midst. You know what I mean? That was there already. That was present. So that, and that without those things, right? Without those things, you can't see it. You won't be able to see it. No one can see it, or and stuff. So there are, there's prerequisition, there's prerequisites, there, and so again, because of the absence of hearing, basically, of amongst all the stuff that I have heard, all the reasons, which some are anyways, whatever. That's not the point. But the absence of this thing of like, yeah, I was in the way, and in some manner, somehow in the way, I discovered that there was actually nothing there at all, or that I was in essence mistreated, or I was lied to, I was sold, it became clear to me that I was bait and switched, and I did not get what was rightly, you know what I mean? What was rightly, something like that would have to be, like in some way, one of the promises were broken, and in accordance with me, in some way, like something like that. and so that's why this God, whatever, is evil or is a liar, and I don't, and I won't believe this, I won't believe this God. But things like that aren't said. There are other reasons given, and man, people go round and round, the arguments go round and round in that regard, and gosh, I think I could even kind of get in there and maybe kind of scrap with them because yeah, I still have. Even with this, even with the changes in the deconstruction that I've been undergoing, I still have in my mind, I believe, solid defenses for how it could be that that a good God could superintend a reality where the things that are said, the things that are charged against God take place. The genocide, as it's called, the grape, the unaliving, of little ones and old people and everyone, and animals, and just all the crazy things you hear about in the Old Testament. Anyways, there is an element where I can see how that is able to be the case. It's not, and it's more than an element. Anyways, but that's a later. Actually, well, I guess I do have. I have started. I think I have part one of some talking about that on somewhere on one of my channels. One of the on this. Anyways, so. Um, well, I lost my train of thought and where I was going a second ago, but so I'm just gonna jump to what it was where I was heading. It was, and I guess I was gonna get into just one of the later areas of real dissidence in a principle and a real impactful element of the Christian walk that I can say that I don't know that I've done. Anyways, just lingering things, like I said, that keep my position from being something that I would say is a deconversion of saying that there's just nothing, that there's untruth, or that's simply fairy tales that are found in the scriptures. So and this later occurrence. So basically, so prayer, just in short, prayer. Prayer is an area, in my experience, in the last decade, that I have found, I have experienced real, just my, not only just the quality of my prayer life, but my understanding of what prayer is and how it is done, and how basically, like, and if basically is it a way that so here are some, I guess, some of the things that I guess that threw me off, and from young, and I'll even so the idea of kneeling, it's not something that, I would say that I'm not opposed to kneeling, but I don't want to. I guess I don't want to get, because that can see this being real, kind of like, I don't know, just leading off into another rabbit trail. I do want to get back to this, but mainly like just my, especially as an adulthood, and more so in adulthood. I guess I'll just jump forward. That, like, what prayer was said to be like, or what it seemed to be expected to be like, or how it expected to look, was something that did not match. It didn't. So one thing I can say is, so audible prayer and private audible prayer for me is is it I've made numerous attempts to do it, and I don't. I how do I say it? I guess I just find myself unable to. Um, so that's one area, and there's other things like, when getting into reading and hearing different, just listening to different treatments on things about prayer, and reading books on prayer and the spiritual life and stuff. The way that the practice of prayer, I mean, because there were definitely variations. I do, which is an interesting. Anyways, I do wish, kind of. I don't like saying I do wish, but it would be great, right, if there were books, or if there were like accounts, as there are for many other things, of like secondhand accounts of like the how someone more, how someone prayed, right? How someone who is known to be a great saint or whatever. There are those, but there aren't that many, and I understand why, because prayer, those saints who were really really doing it, quote unquote, really doing it right. They were praying in secret. They weren't praying in ways that were observable. It perhaps only happened in happenstance kind of situations where someone would. So anyway, um, but yeah. So just basically, feeling great conviction for one, in my not being able to audibly pray in private. So I know that's a weird thing to say. So, because yes, I could pray in before people, but that was because, and really only because, I had been brought up in the tradition that I was brought up in, and have heard many people pray, and so I know how to do this. I know how to do a public prayer about things. It has even my ability for public prayer has become hindered, I think, because of the because of anyways, the dissidence, the dissidence that has increased with regards to it, because it's particularly about like what you say, what's said about the person or the thing that's being prayed about. Prayer, public prayer, and from my observation, has seemed to have been it's a large signaling apparatus, and that, even though people aren't necessarily listening, when a person there are people who are, but not everyone is, who like in church, when there's public prayer, some people are just kind of blah blah blah, thinking about other things, but there are people who are listening to what's being said, and do have a concern with whether or not they can actually in their hearts align with the thing that's being prayed with, so that they can actually pray with the person. And I trust that is an experience of people in churches. And so so anyways, this public prayer kind of thing that I have I'm able to access. It's interesting just because, and that really has been an area of I've just been just kind of unsteady and unstable in the less so. It's become something that I it does come to mind still, because that's one of the things. That's one of the things that if there are some things, there are some great losses implied in 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 how much the scriptures are imagery and without a real reality behind it. There's great loss, in my opinion. Um, and the idea of this communication with to use with a divine with the divine that is transformative, sustaining, energizing, um, um, transcendence, right? Elevating, transforming, I guess, is a better way to say it. And because I tell you what, I see the reality that most everyone sees about how, man, that really that's really needed. You know what I mean? The things that take place in this reality that perplex. And break the heart and hurt the emotions, and you know what I mean, that happen in the earth. The idea of there being access to something that is higher and above, and that is a superintendent, and just the ideas that pretty much surround kind of most conceptions of God. People can argue that it's simply wish fulfillment, to that all the gods kind of happen more or less to be inclined toward benevolence towards humans, towards Earth, and stuff. So there's this reality where they can, they can kind of pray or they can appease, even all the way to appease the gods by burning their children or whatever. But I probably shouldn't have said that on here. But yeah. And so yes. So and yes, in my opinion, there's a great loss. There's great loss if and so I and right now, sometimes it feels to me that I'm in this limbo of kind of wish fulfillment, sustainment from really just like sliding down the slide that of kind of argumentation that come from these atheists and stuff, is that yeah, no, I actually desire, and others say that, the ones who say, but I just don't believe it. So I haven't gone there yet. But I say yet. Anyways, when I say yet, I think, come on, I think I don't have to explain why I would kind of say that. I'm trying to resist the like, oh, well, he sounds like he's just kind of wavering in the wind, and I might be. I was actually in a conversation with somebody along these lines the other day, and I know that I am. And the thing is, though, it's expected. It's expected when considers just kind of what deconstruction kind of is. because there's this there like I mentioned in this video yesterday, there's this uprooting, there's this major uprooting, and that everything that is uprooted isn't immediately replaced. So there's open places, there's holes remaining, there's all kinds of ways to look at it, open sores, actually, hey, the scripture, even in this scripture, Jesus talks about this reality of like, having, well, it was the imagery was spirits, but like having spirits removed, and how that like and how that, how am I going to say it? Kind of got distracted again. Anyways, having spirits removed, and how that if there isn't a like a replacing of the vacuum created by the evacuation of the spirits, then there's this reality where the spirit can come back because it doesn't find watery places out there, and it comes back and brings 7 of its friends, is how it's said. So there's this imagery of like, when something is uprooted, either and of course it can be argued whether or not it's proper to to say that ideas and kind of positions are the same thing as like spirits that are uprooted or whatnot. But I think it's anyways, for a long time I handled that as like that. So yeah, the understanding that like when a certain important component of one's worldview is uprooted, yeah, there is necessarily the following of something else being put in its place. Otherwise it's just the continuation of that. It leads to basically disintegration of just of a person's not a consciousness. I don't want to sound weird like that, and I don't even know if that's proper to even say. I'm not a scientist or anything, but or as or psychiatrist, or I don't work in that field, but it just has an impact, a withering impact. So, and so anyways, I'm almost done here, but yeah, and so with prayer, and just in my experience of basically not fitting in, with regard to my lived experience, prayer, and like I don't know if I mentioned this before specifically, not so much the because yes, it was some of that because it's things like there were seasons where I was real purposeful in having a prayer list. Prayer was something that I was endeavoring to become more consistent in. It's a clear, it's clear in the scripture that, and it's just, and I think it's clear in the understanding and the implications of the reality of God, that prayer, like I was saying before, communication with said deity is gosh, I mean, that's just, it's important to state it simply, of utmost importance and stuff. So yeah, yeah, prayer and praying aright and praying without ceasing and the power of prayer. And I had read books. A.W. Tozer has a fantastic book. I forget the title at the moment, on prayer, and other books. Jonathan Edwards has sermons on prayer. There's so many sermons on prayer. And so yeah, I was driven by the importance. And I don't know. I'm already at a. I guess I'm at an hour. I'm thinking about taking a either taking a break or making this a two-parter. Um, so I tell you what, yeah. For right now, I'm going to make a note of where I am, so I can hopefully continue on. I'm going to try to think more about well, yeah. I guess I'm going to try to think more about just kind of going forward from here. I do want to. Um, I do want to, I guess, state more particularly some of the more like nuanced, just unsteady, just yeah, elements of unsteadiness regarding prayer that I've had, and some of which I've talked to people about, and it's actually then that I began to uh, the dissidents begin to be more informed by hearing certain explanations about prayer, and I will say there's of the different sermons and treaties, especially and that's what I'm saying, that gets me into the so I think I mentioned somewhere else the impact of Puritan and Reformed teaching and sermons, and just kind of that era of the church through the 20th or through the 19th century, um, or even before that, but was just this very powerful treatments, what seemed to be power to me to be a very powerful understanding of the inner man, and the and of prayer, uh, and so yes, in many of those elements actually are, I think, have been made into kind of the reality that I and the reality that I guess that I hold, the understanding that I have, basically how I pray, because yeah, I do pray. And it's not like anyways, I do want to get into that. So yeah, like I said, I made the distinction between my kind of my public prayer and what my prayer ends up looking like, basically, as when I'm alone, and in different occasions where it hasn't been public prayer, where it's just been me, when it's just been myself in the day to day, um, and hoping, believing, being persuaded, or perhaps being deceived, is what I'm, anyways, that I was praying to the actual, and that's the thing, not only praying, but praying to the actual, that goes into the specificity, uh, you know, a whole lot of other areas that kind of goes into. But so yeah, this I'll definitely come back. I'm gonna make notes along these lines to kind of pick up along these lines. But I don't know. Hopefully this is making sense. I or at least, yeah, or at least when I say making sense, I hope that my what I'm saying is understood, so that or it's being understood, so that it's like, what are you even talking about? I hope very few people who are currently subscribed and perhaps watching, um, won't think those things. But I'm going to come back and continue on with this talk. Bye for now.